inventory / cycle counting. My name's Kevin Dennehy. I'm the Senior Director of Professional Services for EpiCenter. And our instructor, our presenter today is Lynn LaPlante. Lynn is our longest tenured consultant in our organization, a senior consultant with us. She's one of our manufacturing consultants and has been working in the software, oh boy, Lynn, since version 4, possibly?
3.1.
3.1, further than I thought. So Lynn has tremendous experience in the Epicor software in previous versions, Vantage and so on. So we were very, very excited to have Lynn do this presentation for us today. So again, I'll ask everybody, and it sounds great so far. There's a lot of people. I'm counting up. There should be close to 80 participants today. So I really appreciate everybody keeping their microphones on mute while Lynn does her presentation. It'll absolutely help with the background noise. So Lynn, again, thank you for doing this for us today, and I am going to turn it over to you whenever you're ready.
Well, thanks, Kevin. My name, as you can see, Lynn LaPlante. I'm a senior consultant with EpiCenter. I have been on an Epicor product since, like Kevin said, I'm old, I'm senior, since 1999, Y2K, world's coming to an end. And like a lot of you, cycle counting and physical counting inside of Epicor looked a little daunting. There's a lot of setup tables, there's a lot of instructions. But once you get it set up and get it running,
it now joining.
Runs smoothly. So I do have a lot of slides, and I don't mean to talk fast, but I really would like to get through the content in our time frame, and I am leaving it open at the end for some questions. So just to let you know, there's 2 things you can do in Epicor, or we'll call it 3. You can do a physical count, a cycle count, or both together. So we're going to go through So we're going to go through some setup tables. Then we're going to go through processing. And then I have some notes scattered through, and then some notes at the end, just overall notes on things. And then we're going to have to open up for some questions. So if you can, everyone can read the eye chart. So for setting up counting in Epicor, there's 2 ways. You can have your full physical, which you can see on the right is a much shorter streamlined process. And then you can have your cycle count. After you initialize your physical inventory, it really flows. Cycle and physical follow the same process at the end. Okay, except for the cycle counting, we just have some more definition that we have to set up. And as we go through, as you can see, they both follow the same path. So setup tables. What you need for both is what Epicor calls in the screen the count maintenance calendar, but it's really one of your production calendars. Now, you don't have to necessarily set up a special calendar, but if you only want to use for cycle counting,
Dave is now joining.
Say 3 days a week, you only want a cycle count on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, for example, you're going to set up a calendar just for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If you want a cycle count every day of the week, you could just use a regular production calendar that you already have set up.
Unknown participant is now joining.
You're going to set it up in the site configuration control, and it's also used within the cycle count schedule maintenance, and you can change the calendar. The one thing about the calendar is the calendar you select in the cycle count schedule maintenance, if those days don't coincide with the schedule you've created, you're not going to be able to pick any parts. And I can give you a quick example of that. So again, if you have a part-time employee that just comes in to count, for example, and they work Monday through Wednesday, in the period definition, if it's set to Friday and Saturday, you won't be able to pick parts because your Monday through Wednesday calendar doesn't match up with your Friday and Saturday cycle count schedule. The next thing is creating APC codes. This is one of the master setup tables, and you can set them at the site, But for physical inventory, you do not need ABC codes. Okay, physical inventory is all your inventory at once, so you don't need ABC codes. But if you're going to do cycle counting, you need to set up ABC codes. And how you set those up, and they're called ABC, but you can have as many codes as you like. As you notice, I have an X code, okay? So I'm saying my count frequency for A type parts is 80%, and it has a stock value of 80% of the stock. Then I have a B that has a 90-day cycle, which is not 95%. What it does is it does the delta, so it's really the next 15%. And then I have the C parts, which I only want to count once a year, and that has only 5% of the value. And I created an X, which we will exclude from cycle counting. So this particular code will not be used in a cycle count. Now, why would you say, why would I make a code that I'm not including in a cycle count, for example? Well, you may have some of those old parts. You still have them on hand, but they're so old that you've basically kind of written them off the books, but you still keep them because just in case you need them, but you don't need to count those. If you use this type of account with this checked on, these parts will not be included in any cycle counting. Okay, so sometimes you have some parts that you just never want to count. Just put those with the code that you have the exclude from cycle count. In your site configuration for both cycle and physical, you're going to set up your production calendar, and you're going to decide if you're going to do a repetitive count or a random count. And a repetitive count will give you the same count, the same parts all the time through. Okay, and in some situations, especially in the random, because it will pick
Errands.
Is now
may not get
exiting.
parts you like or parts you need. You can look in the cycle count status report to see how many parts are in each cycle, and we can adjust those. Now, how do you assign ABC codes? You've created the ABC codes, but I don't want to have to go to every part and manually put them on, which you can, or at the warehouse level. There's multiple warehouses that you can assign an ABC code. Like in everywhere else in Epicor, there is a hierarchy. So at the part maintenance warehouse cycle count tab, that's the most finite spot. That's where Epicor is going to look first. If it doesn't see it there, it's going to go up to the site maintenance, to the warehouse maintenance, up to the site configuration control, and then last is the ABC code maintenance. So once you created your ABC codes, you can actually calculate ABC code process, and it looks at your inventory, and it gives you a report that you can review for the suggested ABC codes. And you can also select the checkbox that will actually assign them for you. So you don't have to manually go through every part to do that. And when you're doing it, you can select, do I want historical usage? And you can go back to a particular date and include it. You can look at projected usage going forward. You can include your parts on hand. Do I want Epicor to update them for you? This checkbox, really important. If you don't check it, and you can run the report and look, and then you can come back and check it and rerun the report, and it will do it for you. So you can run the report multiple times. And then you can do it by warehouse stock valuation. So it'll look in each warehouse and decide the ABC code, or by the site evaluation. Again, use your Epicor help, the Epicor course guide, the online training, one of your friendly consultants to help you guide through all these different setups and checkboxes that are in the different screens. And again, like we always want to mention, if you haven't done a process or if you haven't used part of the software before, always try it in a test database. Because if you try this in production, guess what? You're going to affect your inventory and your counts and the dollar value. So use it in a test database, try it on a sample parts, and see how it works for you. One thing you need for both is a reason code. Under the inventory adjustment reason code, you're going to create a reason code and make sure you select this count discrepancy reason. Okay, you need this because nobody's inventory is ever perfect. And if it is, I want to work there. Okay, because I've never been to any company that every time they've done a count, the numbers and the cost came out equal. So you need a adjustment code just to say, well, I'm going to accept this variance and this is why. Okay, so some processing. So those are some setup tables, and I'll quickly jump into Epicor. And I know you all like my setup. You're jealous. That's okay. We can work with you. These are physical and cycle count inventory screens for you to use. And this is why some people get a little overwhelmed with cycle counting in Epicor. Again, our production calendar setup. You can use a standard calendar that you have, or you can create a cycle count calendar right here. I only want a cycle count on Monday through Wednesday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. So that's the calendar that I created for my cycle counting. Reason codes, again, like I just stated, you're going to go to your inventory adjustment and search, and we'll say, I don't want to use that new part because that's not right. So I'm going to say CC count. We'll add cycle count to that. No, I'll just add a count. We'll do that. Okay, make sure if you're using GL control codes, you add the specific GL control code that you need as well. Again, site configuration. You don't need this for a physical count, but you do need it for a cycle count. Modules, cycle count. And in this one, it's a random cycle counting, and this is my calendar. Both of these can be overridden further down the line. Okay, so those were the setup tables. And again, you need to create your ABC codes. And again, if you go to the list view, you can see how you have them set up in relationship to one another. Tolerance percent. You can also, on ABC codes, have multiple tolerances. So you can have a tolerance percent here. You can use a flat quantity. So 10 pieces plus or minus. I'm using 4.5% or 5.5% of value. Or you can have a dollar value, flat $25 plus or minus, or $75 plus or minus, depending on what you would like to use to figure out your tolerance. Now, if you leave these all 0, you need to have perfect inventory, or one piece out of the count. It says you had 100, you put 99, you're going to have to put an adjustment reason code. So if you leave these all 0, you need to put an adjustment reason code. Okay. When you come in here, you can decide, this is that screen I showed you a little earlier, what you're going to use. You can also filter on a site. If you're a multi-site, you may want to use a different type of criteria for one site or another site. And then when you just do the print preview, you get the preview. If you do it again with the ABC code and run the print preview, it will update your parts. Okay, you don't have to run a process or anything, just doing the print.
Lynn, I think you muted yourself. Oh boy. Hey, Lynn? Lynn, you muted yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, well, I didn't realize it was muted. I didn't click anything. So how far did you not hear any of this?
Your previous slide, can you just go back to your previous slide?
Sure, 1 second. Just go back here and go back.
I think it was the very end of this, just short going. You can, I think you're good going into your, just starting with the next slide.
Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't click anything, so I'm not quite sure what happened, but
I see it again. I think I can unmute you, but
okay.
try it. I'll try.
Okay. Sorry about that all. Okay, so processing. So you only need to do this once. You could do it more, but you only need to do it one time, is run the initial last cycle count date. That'll put a date on all your parts of the last time it was counted, even if you haven't counted them. Okay, so really all you need to do is run that once and set it and forget it. That's all you're done. Okay. The next thing you're going to do for cycle counting is you're going to create a count period definition. And let me see if when I pop into Epicor, I lose you guys. Do I still have you?
I see. I see.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right. So good. Let me just pop back out. Just want to make sure that you can hear me. Okay. So we're going to create a cycle count period definition. So this defines the cycle count period. There's a couple different words that sound the same. So just be careful when you're going through it, you're following the steps that are listed in the guide. Okay. This specifies the year and the start date and the end date to a cycle. And it can be however long you want that cycle to be. But what I find typically is people set it to say 30 days if that's your smallest cycle, to make sure you're getting all your counts. Because if you set it to 1 year, you're going to get a cycle set up right off the bat for the entire year with parts in it for everything. So you may want to make your cycles a little smaller to start. You need to set up that cycle period because then we're going to add it into the cycle count schedule. Okay, again, they sound kind of alike, but they do a little bit different things. When you create that cycle count schedule, it's taking the previous screen and it breaks it up into smaller schedules. And then we can actually go in this screen to actions and perform the part selection. Now, Epicor, again, it does, depending on if you're random or repetitive, what your calendars are, what your ABC codes are, Epicor looks at all that and will populate a number of parts into all those scheduled days. Okay. And on random, like I said before, it depends on the last time you counted and how your count ended up. You may or may not get the part you thought you were going to get. The next thing is we go into cycle count maintenance, and then you bring in the period you made in the previous screen. You can review it, and if you don't want to count that part that day, or you want to add a part that didn't end up in that cycle count, you can go into the cycle part count, PCID selection update, and add parts, remove parts, move parts to another cycle. So you can determine what parts you want to count on what day. So once you have all that set up, now you can start getting ready to start counting. Okay. First, you're going to do is you're going to generate your tags that you need for the count, and you're going to print them. Then you're going to give them to your employees and let them go wild. The first thing before they can actually do anything is start count sequence. This takes a snapshot of your pre-inventory count, and this is what you're going to compare their numbers to when they come back with their tags. And I'm going to go through all this. Once I go through all these instructions, I'm going to show you what all this looks like. Then after you print the tags, you can reverse the count. You can reprint tags. There's a few things you can do. You can actually cancel that count if something happened that you don't want to count that day for some reason. Okay, there's a lot of options that you can do inside that screen before anybody even adds a quantity to the count tag entry. And the count tag entry is, once they're done, again, full physical or cycle count, they bring back the tags, and now you have to put those inside of Epicor and say, for tag number XYZ, this is how many parts we've received. That's how many are in inventory. Now, this is for basic counting. If you're serial tracked, lot tracked, PCID, it's a little bit more granular, especially if you're serial tracked. It's going to give you a tag for every single serial number that you're putting a cycle or physical count to for that warehouse that you're in. So it's a little bit more work if you are a serial track company, just to let you know. And in the count tag entry screen, you can, if you're using a barcode scanner, that's great because you can scan the tag, print it with a barcode and scan it in the screen. Or you can bring in all the parts and then just look for the tag number and enter the information. Makes it a little bit faster. We'll go over that in a minute. Then when you're done with the counting, back in cycle count maintenance or count cycle maintenance, I'm sorry, you can maintain your tags, void whatever's not doing. You can run the report of unreturned and voided tags to see what's still out there. If people forgot the tag, missed the tag, dropped the tag, whatever it is. You can look at the report and see which ones you want to take care of. Send them back out and say, oh, I'm done, but you missed 2 tags that I gave you. So they have to go back and find those tags. Once all the counts are in, you go in and you run the count variance calculation. This is also done in the count cycle maintenance screen. And this gives a report of your delta of the pre-snapshot quantity that you said you had on hand versus what was reported back as what was on hand. So if you need to send, again, someone out to recount, they put in 1,000 on the paper when it should have been 100, or they put 100 when it should have been 1,000, things like that. So you'll see those variances in that variance calculation report. Once you've decided your numbers are all good and you're going to accept the variance, there's a count discrepancy reason code entry screen. This is why you need your reason code, because you're going to decide, well, I'm off 5 pieces. That's an acceptable variance. I'm off $30. That's an acceptable variance. Or I'm off 1,000 pieces. I've lost the box of screws. Well, I don't like it, but I'm going to accept it because it is what it is, right? So that's what you're going to use that screen for. You come back into the count cycle maintenance screen, and now you're going to post the counts. This will then go up, update your inventory, and update your dollars in inventory. Okay. You can also generate and recount tags, and you can review the calculations and post the counts. Okay, that's all done in there. And the simple steps of all of this that I talked about, lucky 13. There's probably a few more in there, but we're going to stick with 13. So ABC code maintenance, you set up your ABC codes. You calculate your ABC codes. You create a cycle count period definition. Then you create the scheduled maintenance. Then in cycle count maintenance, you're ready to do
Is
counting.
now exiting.
You generate your tags, you print your tags, you start your count sequence. The employees perform the counts, they come back, you go into count tag entry and you enter the counts. You go through the cycle count maintenance. Again, you can print on return tags, you can void tags, you can do all that stuff. And then you're going to look at your count variance calculation screen to decide, do I need to resend people out and recount tags? When you're done, you go to the count discrepancy reason code, and then you post your counts. So that's a lot of steps, but once you start doing them, they go a lot smoother than the steps look. So I'm going to hop back into Epicor. And hopefully, so we have our ABC. I already initialized the last count date in this database, so I'm not going to do that again because I've already done it once. I don't need to do that again. Okay. And if I go into the cycle count schedule maintenance, it's looking for a cycle period. So if I click this and I pick the warehouse I want to look at, and I go into the cycle period, I know these are closed, so I'm going to make a new cycle period. And basically, once you hit the new icon, it grays this out. And it'll give you the next number. You don't fill this number in. You fill in the year, you fill in the description. And I'm using a short description, but you're going to want to use a little bit longer description because that's what you see in the screen. And I'm going to say it's going to start today, and I'm going to go for a month. So I'm doing a month cycle count, and I'm going to save it. So that's your period definition, and you could do one. You could predetermine these for the whole year, and you can set them all up for the whole year so you don't have to come in here until next year to do it, or you can do it as you're going through and creating new cycle count periods. Okay, so there's my cycle count period. I'm just going to slide that to the side and refresh that. And here it is. And that's why I say make your definition a little bit longer so you understand what you're looking at. And if you notice, it took my dates that I put in and put it here. And now it also is defaulting the calendar that I have at the site. If I want to change that calendar for some reason, I can before I go ahead and finish. I can also exclude parts that are on hand. I can exclude parts that have a 0 quantity on hand or a negative quantity on hand. And I think for this one, I'm just going to exclude zeros, and I'm going to save it. And now I can perform the part selection. So when I click this, if you notice, it says already parts were selected. So when I go to the cycles, in this database, I don't have too many parts. So I have some without any parts because I don't have a lot of parts in this particular database. And if you notice the dates, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, the 18th, and 19th, 20, I did a whole month range. Why am I getting those dates? Remember, my calendar said it's a Monday through Wednesday calendar. Okay. I'm only counting on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So if we go to a calendar, if you look at these dates on a calendar, these are only Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. That's why the calendar that you select here in your period definition has to coincide with your start and end dates. So if I picked a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday calendar and my period was only for next Saturday and Sunday, for example, I wouldn't be able to select any parts because they don't match. So those 2 steps are done. And again, you can set these up in advance. And now when I go into my cycle count maintenance, I'm going to search and select that cycle that I just created. Now, again, you can see there's a bunch of cycles in here. Here's mine. You can filter it by a warehouse. If you had many warehouses, you could filter it by the year. If you unfortunately had some left over from last year, and you could also select it by the cycle period. So you can filter. If you include physical inventory checkbox, it does the reverse of what you think. It doesn't include it, but it excludes everything but physical. Okay, so this means you're only including physical inventory. You're excluding cycle counting. So I'm going to pick this one. This is the one I want to do first. And as you notice, like I said, I don't have a lot of parts in this database, so it gave me this one to count. If I wanted to add more parts, I could come to the cycle count part selection update. Again, I pick the cycle that I'm working on, and I can remove this one. I can move it to another period, or sorry, I can add a new part to it. So if the part didn't come in and I want to add it, I can add a new part here and save it. If I add a new part, and let me search, I'm just going to find something. Let me just see what I have. Everything I have an inventory for came in. So like I said, I don't have a lot of parts in here. So I'm going to just pick this guy. Oop. And save it. So I'm in the update screen. Close that. So when I come back into my cycle count, I'm just going to search and select it again. And there it is. So I can add parts that didn't get generated automatically. When you go to actions, I only have 2 since I haven't done anything yet. I can either generate the tags or I can cancel the cycle altogether. When I generate the tags, it asks me, do I want to do blank tags? Now, why would you want blank tags? Because just in case inventory is in more than 2 bins than you thought, just incidentals, you can create blank tags. How do you want that tag to look? Do you want it by the bin ID and the part, by the part class, by the part number, the bin ID? Do you want to include netted? Again, a nested PCID. We're not doing PCID in this right now, but it's included. And you're going to generate tags. So it generated the why did it only generate 1? Because I don't have inventory on this one. I know I don't. So it's only giving me the 1 tag. All you do is generate, and now you're going to print them. You can either print it by a tag, which you could cut up and give different tags to people. Print your blank tags if you've created any, and you can create a barcode for the tag if you'd like, or you can do it as a sheet. You're going to get multiple entries on one, and I can do both just to show you. Oop. I don't have barcodes, so we'll take that one off. Okay, so this is the sheet form. So if your facility isn't big, you're going to get, this is the sheet form where you're going to get a bunch on a sheet. I don't know how many fit, maybe 8 or 10 on one sheet. So this is what the sheet looks like. And then I'll come back and I'll just show you what the tag does. Now, depending on how you set this up to print, if you reprint, oh, I can't print because I already did it. I already did it once. So depending on what you set, when you go to reprint the tags, you're going to get it in the same format that you originally did. So if you do it in sheet, when it reprints, you're going to get them in sheet. If you do it in tag, when it reprints, you're going to do it in tag. And then you come here. And now, again, before you start your count, you can still change your mind, void it, cancel it, whatever you'd like. But once you start the count, this does your snapshot. And now you send people out counting. When they're done, count tag entry. Again, you're going to pick your cycle and your tags. Now you can scan your tag in, type your tag in. I'm searching, I'm pulling my tag in. And if I have a lot of tags, if I go to the list screen, you're going to see them here. And now you're going to put in your counted number. I don't know how many I have, so I'm going to cheat and I'm going to look. And then I have 100,206. So I'm just going to say 100,000. Somewhere I've lost them. You know, if they want to put in a note, you can. Once you click into the next field, it says it's returned and who is it counted by, and you can just, if you want to just use initials, you can. I'm going to save it, and that's all the tags I have in this particular cycle to count. Now we come back. You're going to love this screen. You always come back here, and now I'm just going to refresh it. And if you notice, counts have been entered. Before this, we said count was started. Now counts have been entered. So I come in here and I run my variance calculation report. If I want to print the tag detail, I can. And I selected all parts, but I could have did parts that only had a discrepancy and or out of tolerance. You may want to do that, especially if you have a large warehouse with a lot of parts. You don't want to see every part that was in the count. So as you can see, here's my discrepancy and my value. Now, it won't let you post it if you have not, as you notice from not posted, it won't let you go ahead and post it, but I will anyway, because I like to do things that I'm not supposed to. And I'm going to post my counts and put a log file. That one posted, this one, it didn't because it didn't need an adjustment. Now, why did this one post? Or it didn't post because we didn't have a reason code. We were out of the spec for it. So our count discrepancy. Here it is. And you notice this one's white, this one's not because it's within tolerance. This one's out of tolerance. So again, put the reason code here and then we save it. I come back to my actions. And if I go to post counts, oops, and I hit post, it has been posted and completed. And you can see all this action that takes place. If I go to part tracker, I can see my count history. I can see I did a full physical on it, and then you can see the cycle counts that were taking place and what the numbers were before and after. In part transaction history tracker, again, I can see it was an adjustment to the quantity, and it references the cycle that it was done against. Now, for a physical count, all you need is just basically to have your calendar set up at the site and then run the initialized physical inventory. You don't need ABC codes. You don't need those, the period or anything, because it's going to go through every piece of inventory and it's going to create that cycle count maintenance for you. Okay, that's the difference between a full physical and a cycle count. You don't get to choose anything. You just have every part goes in the full physical count. And you need to have your full physical done before you can do any cycle counting. And again, all you need to do is the production calendar, the cycle count period, the cycle count schedule, and then the physical inventory. You can include non-stock if it can be used, if it's quantity bearing and non-stock. You can also include that in there. There is an include zero checkbox that can be used to select parts with a zero quantity on hand. But unlike cycle count, you can't add any parts to the physical because it's a physical. It does everything for you. Okay. Again, once you've initialized that physical count, you go to the cycle count maintenance screen and you process all the other screens like you did in the cycle count maintenance. Okay, just a few notes. I'm going to talk even faster. Your physical count has to be done before you're going to do a cycle count. So if you are using a physical and cycle count, your physical count has to be completed before you can start cycle counts. You will be able to add parts to a cycle count if it doesn't, but only if it exists in that warehouse. So if I'm in the main warehouse and the part doesn't exist in the main warehouse, I can't add it to the main warehouse cycle count maintenance. If your parts are inactive, those will not be also included. You have to go back and make them active. They'll be included in the count if for some reason, why, I'm not quite sure, but then you can do the count. Then now you can decide to adjust them out of inventory, scrap them, whatever you're going to do with them, and make them inactive again. They ignore parts that are in managed inventory bins. So supplier and customer managed inventory are not included in any counts. Like I showed, like I said before, I was not out of variance because I was within my tolerance of dollars and quantity. But if you are out, it won't let you post and you'll have to go through and like I did and put in a reason code. Again, you can either use sheet or tag to print out the tags. If you do have multiple variances on your ABC code, if one or the other are out when the count comes, again, you need to enter a reason code. Either you're out of quantity or you're out of the price. Once you've started the count sequence for a selected cycle or a full inventory, it can be reversed. Okay, you can reverse the count sequence, you can change it, and then you can start again. So that was it. Sorry if I went a little fast, a lot of content. My name is Lynn LaPlante. There's my email, and if you need any assistance, if you want to have a follow-up, you can contact Kevin Dennehy. And anybody have any questions I can answer?
Yeah, thanks.
Did I put everybody to sleep?
So just so everybody knows, I don't know why there's an echo, but I reset the meeting request with a copy of this PowerPoint presentation on it, so everybody should get that. So I did that during this session. And as Lynn said, if anybody needs further assistance on cycle counting, Lynn or we have a team of experts that do this all the time. We would be glad to assist you further if you just want to reach out to me, and you have my email address there, and it's also in the presentation that I sent to you. So additionally, I wanted to let everybody know that we are going to do another one of these sessions next week, and we're pretty excited about this one. We're going to do this session on a financial month-end closing processing procedures. So that's going to be the same time as this one next week, next Thursday, May 7th from 12 to 1 Eastern. And so you can look for that in an email on our website. We'll probably post that on Monday. And regarding this session, we are also going to be looking to post the recording. We recorded this session. We're going to be looking to post that on our website as well. So you can look for that in the coming week or so. So thank you.
I see Kevin Wallace asked, why do I run out of parts to select when performing cycle counts? ABC codes? Kevin, are you still on? Kevin Wallace?
Yes.
Is that you?
Yes.
Oh, hi. So what do you mean, why do I run out of parts?
We'll do our cycle counts, and when selecting parts. So if I have part A, I selected it today, maybe I selected it next week, and then the following week it's gone.
So again, it could be a couple things, but do you know, are you doing a random cycle counting, or are you doing the repetitive?
Honestly, I am not sure. I'm the manager, so I have people, they create them themselves, and
Okay.
they're looking at it and they're telling me.
So what I've seen is on the random, again, that's the word, right? Random. And depending on how your cycle counting goes for a particular part, if you cycle counted it recently, within your 30 days or whatever on your ABC code, or if as you've been progressively counting it, if you've had good counts on it, those will get less frequent on a random. If you're running a repetitive, you'll basically get the parts all the time. And
Okay.
you may want to look at your ABC code setup. Again,
I think it's on the random, because I think that's what's happening. You're not out of variance a couple of times, and then that's when it's going away. That's what I think.
okay, so make sure when you go to your site, whatever the site that's in, when you go to your modules in inventory cycle count, if you're on random, just change it to repetitive.
Okay.
Okay, and then that's when you'll typically get the parts, all the parts, all the time.
Is now exiting.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There are a couple more questions, Lynn.
Sure. Does it work well with raw material? We have stock in pounds and feet. Beth Wilson, you're a multi UOM inventory. Beth, are you still there? If that happens, excuse me.
It sounds like she is multi-UOM, Lynn.
Okay, if that's in the same warehouse that you're doing the cycle count for, you will get 2 tags. Okay, one for pound and one for feet. So you will get both tags because it knows you have on-hand inventory of pound and feet or whatever UOMs you have in that same warehouse that you're cycle counting. Yep, so no matter what UOMs, you're going to get a cycle count for that warehouse for all the different UOM types for that part. Okay. Let's see.
I think Carrie has a question as well.
Yeah, we do our inventory by bin, not by part. So you can you can only go down to warehouse. Okay, when you're creating these things. So if you notice in like the cycle count period definition is just a period, okay? But when you go to the cycle count schedule maintenance, okay, it's by warehouse. Unfortunately, Epicor doesn't go down to the bin level. So it's by the warehouse level. So bins in the warehouse by the parts you have. So that one's a little trickier of a process, because I don't know if you'd be interested in creating more warehouses. to do that, but some customers have created more warehouses to split it up, because when they initialized the cycle counting, they realized they only have 1 or 2 warehouses in Epicor, and it gave them way too many parts. So they've defined it and they've kind of made more warehouses. So, but that's a bigger decision. I'm sure you could probably customize it. I'm not quite sure, because it's a pretty, Epicor is doing a lot of thinking behind the scenes, so a customization could be pretty big for that. So,
and it may not have to be a customization. There could be other things, such as creating a query in a dashboard and a by bin, and within that dashboard you can have your last count date, so you can choose to segregate a specific date from that dashboard and kind of work that way. So there definitely are a number of things you could do. I've taken your information down, Carrie, and maybe I'll reach out to you within the next day or so that we can talk some more.
Yeah. Remember, when this runs and you go to actions and you generate it, it just gives you the numbers. You can always go to this cycle count part and move parts if you want to group them by bin later or something like that. So there's a couple things you can do around that.
Thank you, Lynn. So Tina, I think, has a question, and we have a couple more minutes. So I think we can get her question. And how does PCID and nested PCID work? What do the tags look like?
Well, through it, as you're going through, unfortunately, I don't have any in here to do that. But throughout some of these screens, they ask you, do you want to void it if it's a PCID? Do you want to do that when you want to print it? Is it nested? It'll break it out for you.
Dave
I just did the basics in this one, but again, in the cycle, the Epicor course for cycle counting, it goes through all that. And I haven't looked at the on-demand training with specific to PCID, but it is included now in cycle counting, which obviously it wasn't there before. And great. Anybody else?
So great. So like
about one second, if you have time, is there a PDF about accuracy and reporting? There are a bunch of reports. I color coded these for myself. These are basically setup tables. These are process tables. These are entries, and these are reports. So that's how I color coded mine, just to keep them a little more square in my mind. If a part is missing an ABC code, what are your selected? Count accuracy. Okay, put in the year. Again, you can filter by a warehouse. Let's see what we get. So here it is. If this answers your question, there is a report. Again, you can put it out to a CSV file if you wanted to, leave it as a PDF. But here it is. Okay.
Thanks, Lynn. So like I said, if there's any other assistance that anybody needs, if you just would like to reach out to us, we'll be glad to contact you and work with you a little further. So that'd be great. Thank you very much, Lynn. Great presentation. It was really helpful. And again, maybe we'll see some of you next week for our financial session on month-end closing and processes and procedures. So thank you, everyone. Again, thank you very much for joining. We appreciate it. Great turnout. Hopefully this helped everyone and get you on the right path to cycle counting and physical inventories. Thanks again.
Thank you.